So this next one is titled, Am I the asshole for calling my brother's girlfriend a gold digger after she Googled the cost of our Christmas gifts? My brother James has a girlfriend, Lindsay, who he's been dating for 7 months. He decided to bring her to Christmas at my house, stay over Christmas Eve, and leave the next day after lunch. I'd met Lindsay at drinks before this, and she seemed nice. When they arrived, Lindsay walked in and complimented my decorations, large tree in the foyer, and asked how much they cost. I was a bit surprised by the question, but I just said, more than I'd like, and moved on. Throughout the evening, she asked several questions centered around money. She asked my husband how much he paid for our house, my stepdad how much money he made in his previous job, how much my watch cost. She even Googled one of our art pieces to see how much it sold for and started talking about how crazy it was that we spent that much, which frankly was very uncomfortable. My stepdad pulled my brother aside and asked if there was a problem, but my brother just said it was normal for her to do that, but he said he'd speak to her about it. On Christmas morning, we all gathered around to open presents, and thankfully, Lindsay didn't say anything untoward. So I figured James had spoken to her about her intrusive questions. However, at lunch, we were talking about plans for January, and Lindsay loudly said she didn't know how we could afford to do anything in January, as she added up the total we'd spent on gifts, and then proudly proclaimed the total amount. The whole table went silent.
Does it say how much?
And no.
I want to know.
Not yet. And honestly, I was equal parts shocked and annoyed that someone could be so ignorant. I looked at Lindsay and said, quote, "You are the world's most diligent gold digger. Seriously, would you like to be the family accountant since you're already tracking expenses?" Lindsay stuttered out an apology and tried to explain, but my stepdad just changed the conversation and we moved on. She was mercifully quiet for the rest of lunch. After they left, my brother messaged me saying I'd really upset Lindsay and was out of line with what I said. I argued that he had said he'd talk to her, and he clearly didn't. Not that someone should have needed guidance to know how crass her comments were. He is saying I owe both of them an apology, but I think Lindsay's behavior was disgraceful. My parents say Lindsay was wrong, but I probably should have said something in private, or they could have, and I shouldn't have said something in front of everyone. Am I the asshole?
Well, she accomplished her goal.
Which, what do you think was?
Okay. Yes, you were the asshole. Unfortunately, how it transpired and how it played out made her the asshole. She didn't have to end up being the asshole, but she opted to call her out in front of everybody. So are you good if I take this and go with it?
Sure.
Go with the flow here.
You're going.
I just think that people from different walks of life have such a different perception of money and how much money, like the value of money and what you can get with money and how you make money. And like, I can remember, I've always been pretty transparent with anybody that wants to know how much I make in any job that I've ever been in. But I also grew up in a place where I saw both walks of life. I was around poor people in the lower class, right? And then I've seen people throughout my life that have been entrepreneurs, that have been millionaires, that have worked. I've seen people that have had to do blue collar jobs. And so I really understand the value of money. But I think maybe that Lindsay was her name, right? Was possibly overwhelmed by the amount of money that she was around and is like, holy cow, like this is a lot of money. Holy cow, this is really nice. Like, what do you do? Like, how much money do you make? Oh my gosh, that's a really nice watch. Like, how much is that? Where maybe she just wasn't taught that it's not socially polite. Like in our social world, from my perception, is that it's a frowned upon thing. If somebody asked me how much this watch was right now, I'd tell you, but the majority of people don't feel comfortable sharing that information. And if you're not phrasing
There you go, buddy.
He got a little stuck there.
Yeah, so if you're not phrasing it appropriately, like, hey, do you mind me asking, like, I really love your watch. Like, what kind is it?
Mm-hmm.
And then going about, oh, do you mind if I ask, like, how much that was? Okay, well, like, that's okay. Or you could just be like, hey, I really love your watch. What kind is it? Save that shit for the back of your brain and then go and Google it later. But clearly, Lindsay also like stepped out of bounds. Like, she hasn't been taught about money and what's polite and what's not polite, because then she was like, holy shit, you guys spent $3,000 on me? Like, how the hell are you going to do anything in January? Maybe she can't think about what $3,000 like is to you versus somebody else.
I agree that this, to me, when I hear the whole story, it seems like she felt like a fish out of water, probably, where she came into this new world completely different from her own experiences. And yeah, maybe in her family, maybe it's like a bit of a compliment to be like, wow, that's a nice watch. How much did you spend on that watch? Because that's a really nice watch. So it could be perceived as a compliment in maybe, how she was brought up and raised versus in their family. It's clearly not, and a little bit of a privilege to not have to think about money, where she's probably grown up always having to think about money and how much everything costs. And I grew up with a mom who's a school teacher and a dad who was a carpenter, and our Christmases were very conservative. And I remember going to a Christmas where someone got a horse and someone got a computer, and it blew my mind.
And that's like my mom literally saved all year, and like not every Christmas was like that, especially.
So she's talking about us.
Yeah, she's talking about us.
So like, and
the first Christmas that I saw, it like blew my
our
mind.
mother expresses her love in
Yes, that is her love language.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Always has been.
Like my mom grew up like really wanting. Like my mom babysat all summer, and like Derek mowed lawns, like her brother, to like be able to buy their school clothes. And my mom really talks about like the holidays not having much or not having really anything. And my grandma worked her ass off too, being a single mom basically with three kids. So different upbringing. And so my mom literally bankrupts herself for Christmas and like still feels like she doesn't do enough. And like we talked about it this year. I'm like, okay.
No presents.
No presents. Like we're all at a point in our lives where it's not about that for us. Like we really just want the quality time. But for her, it means the world to her to bankrupt herself every year to give these crazy gifts. And so I understand like there's so many different ways to do Christmas, but depending on different means, it's different for everyone.
Yeah. The thing that I'm curious about with this story is like, why was Lindsay a gold digger? Only because I don't understand, like gold digging. Like she wasn't trying to get more. She just like was so wrapped up in how much money everything was. Like, holy cow, like that's a lot of money for that. That's how can you guys do anything? You spent so much money. Gold digging to me is like, oh my gosh, like what else are you guys going to get me? Or
taking advantage of the situation, which it didn't really seem like that.
She didn't seem like she was taking advantage. So sister and Lindsay need to have a separate conversation about some boundaries about what's polite, what's not polite.
Yeah.
So,
well, and even if you're going to be supportive of your brother, and this is who your brother has chosen, and clearly if you respect your brother and his choices, and you think, oh yeah, he's going to choose someone who is, a person who is of character and so forth, who's going to fit into the family, or just a person who's right for him. It doesn't need to fit into the family, but a person who's right for him, then you need to just have that conversation with your brother and let him decide if he needs to talk to her or not about that situation. And if you feel like that's not getting where and it's really bothering you, then have a private conversation and say, hey, just so you know, I just want you to come across the right way. You're rubbing people the wrong way, or you're ruffling some feathers by asking about prices,
Yeah.
you might want to lay off on that. I mean, there's a tactful way if you're really trying to welcome someone into your family versus, hey, gold digger.
That, and I will agree. I'm really in the boat of everyone sucks here.
Yeah.
Whether she wanted to or not, Lindsay didn't come across in the best way. And like my first
Agreed.
thought was like, is she maybe neurodivergent and just doesn't understand the social cues and like things like that? Because like she Googled one of the art pieces to see how much it sold for and started talking about how crazy it was that we spent that much, which that to me is a little different than just being like, oh, how much did that cost? How much did that cost? Basically being like a numbers person and you're curious. Like, who knows? Maybe she's prepping for the Price is Right. You never know. You never know with people. But to then shame someone for spending that much, I think that's where like the social cues for me really, I'm like,
Social cues, yes, I agree. But also her concept of money. Like,
yeah. And so I think
like
there could be something to maybe she doesn't come from the same tier that
Right.
these people are living in. And so there's a lot of comments from OP here. Everything under the sun from someone asking, info, is she autistic? Not that we know of. And someone being a fucking asshole and going, not the asshole. And I'd never apologize to this human cash register, which OP just like goes, this killed me, laughing emoji, like three of them.
Again, she wasn't trying to take advantage or get any additional funds.
No. And a
Presents.
lot of people are asking like, is she autistic? I am, and I frequently misread social cues. I know better than to inquire about costs of Christmas gifts or your artwork, but if someone hadn't explained that to me, I might not have known. And so people are really asking the questions, not the asshole, but you sound like a wet blanket. They're telling OP that. I don't mean that in a mean way, but you really sound like a total bummer. By the end of your post, I was reading it in Buzz Killington's voice. There would have been a better way to approach the issue, but loudly at the table is pretty funny.
She accomplished her point. I mean,
she got it.
That was
I'm
her
sure
goal.
Lindsay knows. I'm sure you've ruined that relationship for ever.
And that's the thing. Like,
Well, especially too, like if she Googled an art piece, yes, it's not politically correct or
I probably
socially correct to talk about how crazy that is. But
Yeah.
if that art piece was even $2,000, it'd be like, how many school lunches could you have bought instead of buying this weird ass abstract art that I don't understand because it looks weird?
Yeah,
Yeah.
some people just don't get it. They don't understand how much money is actually out in the world and how people go out and actually get that money.
yeah.
Like,
I don't.
well, yeah, right. We're just
I really like the concept of money. I'm like really in this like late stage capitalism deep dive right now. And like, it's just like, it's an invented concept. Like I'm really down this weird rabbit hole of like, what is money? And I'm like, it's just monopoly money. It's just like fake money being passed to people's hands. And like, I really have a hard time with it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. A lot of questions though, like, is Lindsay from your country? Yes, same country, same culture. Someone goes, LOL, this is so American. And OP goes, we're actually European. Can't you tell by the artwork? They're cultured, guys. I've known a lot of people with more money than I have 10 times over. And yes, sometimes I think, geez, how much did you pay for that car? Backgammon set, weird gadget I've never heard of. But I don't say it to them because I was always told that is unconsciously rude.
Maybe she wasn't
Right there.
told that.
Maybe she wasn't told that. That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me how much our fridge was that we just bought.
How much was it?
$1,500, $500 off. It was a Black Friday deal.
Jeez.
Is
Black
that
Friday.
crazy?
I was going to say, that's what I said to that person. And they're like, why would you spend that much money? Your last fridge was perfectly
See,
fine.
you got
But it
shamed.
wasn't.
Was that
And
grandma?
It was leaking.
It's not important.
Was it
who
grandma?
It was. Let's
And
just
rusty.
move on.
It was
Okay,
from 2003.
but it was a
Your
really
fridge
good
is
fridge.
really nice.
Thank
yeah.
Yeah,
you.
it is really nice.
But like
the
the
same
cost
thing, right?
of stuff is gone through the roof. Like our dryer here in Duluth, like my mom was like, our dryer's broken. Like, could you help me get a new dryer? Can we go to Best Buy and look? Like this was around Thanksgiving, so there was all the deals. And we went and looked at dryers and like the most basic dryer that Best Buy had was like $700.
It's expensive.
So for anybody out there that is wondering, well, like what is the polite way to find out like how much something is or like how much specifically like, hey, how much do you make in your career? Because she asked the stepdad that, right? I would approach that as like, hey, like, I'm just really curious, I'm just wondering, how much does somebody in your type of position make? You can just ballpark it. You don't need to be specific, but I'm just curious because, I'm thinking about
I'm
X, Y, and
interested
Z,
in, yeah.
or, give some context to why you're asking. Or just say, hey, I'm just generally curious, like somebody in that position, like, what do you make? I'm just like, really intrigued, rather than, oh, how much do you make?
I once asked a dentist how much money he made.
How'd that work?
He wouldn't tell me. I mean, it might have been right after I got my wisdom teeth taken out, and I was,
you're a little loopy.
on those good meds.
But had you said, I've thought about being a dentist my entire youth. Like, I'm just
Which
curious.
was true
like,
for you.
Which was true
for you.
I legitimately was like, this is a socially acceptable question because I'm thinking about being a dentist, but I really want to know, how much money do you make? As an 18-year-old thinking about going to college,
and
this is my career path.
And that person has the right to say, I just don't feel comfortable sharing that, but I make a good living.
Yeah.
And you just say, yeah, no, that's totally respectable. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
And you move on. So money's touchy. People get funny about money.
They do.
So.
It is a really hard conversation to have, like anything money related, except I think with your coworkers, I really believe that like a lot of places should be more open about what they're making because like a lot of employees are getting way underpaid compared to like counterparts. Like,
so there are
especially
laws
women.
about that now. I don't know if they existed when I first started working, but when I was 16, I literally was told that it's against the rules to discuss your salary and that you
That's
could
a
be
lie.
fired. When I was 16, I was
Yeah.
told that.
They were trying to
and this
manipulate
little
you.
16-year-old of me, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be fired. I've applied to like 50 places before this one person would hire me.
We're going down a rabbit hole.
I know.
No, okay,
Do,
so anyway.
do you want me to continue on that?
That's what this
Because
whole thing is.
You just opened up
A can of worms.
a can of worms. It's
We gotta-
hard.
we
It's
gotta-
a hard
Rabbit hole.
topic.
This is
We're
a
go-
rabbit
I know,
hole.
it
We're
is.
walking away, people.
So we
Let's
do
walk
have
away. There's no winners here.
we do have one other comment. It's info. What was the total amount she came up with? And OP responds an overspend.
Yes, an
And
overspend.
so OP has a problem sharing
Yeah,
how
clearly.
much money
I mean,
she feels uncomfortable with
but
it. You want to know how much we spent on Christmas gifts for our kids this year? Too much. I'm done.
well, and that's the thing. Like, but there's like these little glimpses, right? Someone was like, "What kind of watch is it?" A Cartier one that my husband had customized. Like, you're willing to share that, so it's like you like to toot your own horn and have these bougie, flashy things. I really think everyone sucks here. The overall vote on this one was not the asshole. People think OP was justified for calling this girl a gold digger and all this stuff. And I'm like, I think one, yes, it's tacky that she asked. If anyone wants to know how much something costs, download the Google app, go to the lens, take a picture of it, and you'll find it. You will find it and you'll get a price tag. You'll probably get a link to buy your own. Use it versus asking idiots like OP. I think it's rude. I do think it's rude. I think like the rude all around. I think everyone sucks. We'll put it that way.
Everyone sucks. Lindsay
Everyone
was
sucks.
rude. Whether she knew or
I think
she
she
didn't
sucks
know.
the least, though.
I
I
would
just-
like to know more about the background. I'm curious
Can
because
Lindsay chime in?
yeah,
Come on, Lindsay.
Lindsay.
At Two Hot Takes. We need
I
to
hope
know.
Lindsay finds this. We have a lot of stories recently that like I did a two-sided episode, and I hope Lindsay you're out there and you see this and you write me and you say no, she's just I don't even think they ever specified. They suck. They suck. They're a
Stepfather
tootie-
was good. Stepfather changed the conversation.
Yeah.
He moved on.
Yeah. Okay.
Moving on.
We're moving along.
All right.
Let's move on.